Hello everyone, today we have the opportunity to present to you our degree project presented by my partner Jesus Ladino and I, Diana Marcela Escobar Satizabal, and our director who has Diana Katherine Gonzalez. We will discuss our research program. From the local perspective, we refer to the foreign language program, where it was born from the need to know the perception of the students regarding the teaching methods that are carried out in the communicative competence classes. Initially, to understand this problem, we did a documentary review where we realized that the program wasn't clear about the methods and only offered teachers the freedom to exercise a method framed in the development of the communicative competence. Thanks to this flexibility provided by the university, it seemed important to us to recognize that the students felt that there was no precise method. This, from the national perspective, was fit thanks to the resolution for the accreditation of the programs in which curricular clarity is requested from the proposal that is made in the programs. Also, from the international perspective, we recognize the importance of English in the universities as a means of internationalization according to growth. So, returning to our problem in the ground that there is a study that was carried out with the teachers of the program by Romero, Borda, and Agudelo in 2018. In which was found that the teachers didn't correctly apply the communicative approach, and some of the methods used differ strongly than expected. Then we consider necessary to work on the students. From this, we decided to make an approximation with them to find information about that they perceive phase of teaching methods, and we realized that they were indeed not clear about this, which led us to wonder the following. What perceptions do the students have regarding the teaching methods implemented in the communicative competence courses in English of the UCEBA bachelor's program in foreign languages with an emphasis on English? Now, the purpose of our project is to function as an input for the program. At the same time, contribute the idea of working in this quality and open a space to reflect about the communicative competence courses are being handled. This allows us to propose the following objectives. As a general objective, understand the perception of the students regarding the teaching methods implemented in the communicative competence courses in English of the UCEBA bachelor's degree program in foreign languages with an emphasis on English.
Now this objective follows in the next steps. Identify students' perceptions about the principles and objectives of the communicative approach to learn English. Also describe the students' perceptions of the teaching methods used in the English communicative competence classes. And third, compare the perceptions of the students, establishing relationships with approaches and teaching methods of foreign languages.
For the construction of our theoretical framework, we have some authors who have dealt with the subject of perception. Wolfgang and Lahi established that perception is the process in which identify a stimulus and assign a meaning to it, according to what we receive from our environment, and this is built taking into account our experiences and what we already know. This, at the same time, it works as a tool that human beings use to connect with the notion of the world.
Now, regarding foreign language teaching methods, the term method, in simple words, should be known as the way to achieve the goal. Harmer gives us an explanation about this, and it is that it exists to define the types of activities, roles of the teachers, the students, and the type of material, in addition to some organizational models regarding syllabus. In the teaching of foreign languages, as we can see, there have been different ways to teach the language, and in the discussion of what is considered appropriate, new concepts or paradigms are created. So in this sense, the paradigm that prevails until now is a focus on communicative competence. Now, our methodological way to answer the research question. Our research has a qualitative approach since, according to its nature, this approach allows a description, analysis, interpretation, and reflection, in this case on the perceptions of the participants, according to what they have experienced in the subjects of communicative competence. The case study method was used, which is characterized by being particular, descriptive, and also heuristic. In our situation, we focus on a small population in which we try to understand, describe, and interpret in detail what the students perceive regarding the methods. 10 participants were chosen according to the criteria mentioned here, and the design moments were the following. At the time of information, the non-participatory observation was carried out. Then, in the deepening from the results of the observation, the interview instrument was generated to interpret the perceptions of the students. They were constructed, the questions and the data were analyzed. The data were coded, and finally, in the reflection, the data obtained in the instruments was analyzed in relation to the theory and the background. The categories shown here were found inductively after the analysis of the two instruments taken from the qualitative data analysis of Miles and Huberman technique, and were theoretically defined according to the authors Richards and Rogers. One of the categories found was the role of the teacher in the class of communicative competence, which is the function that the teacher carries out within the class. From this theoretical definition appear some other codes. The first code is the teacher strategies for error correction, which was found in the field diary and the interview. Both instruments allow us to define that the teacher is an error corrector in the English class. An example of this could be found when the teacher, for example, based on the errors of their students speaking, immediately corrected them by interrupting their speech. In the interview also, the students assured that this correction strategy was beneficial for their learning. Also, the second code was the teacher as a monitor and a facilitator of conversations in English. It was found in the field diary instrument allowed to visualize that the teacher uses certain strategies in which he goes for the classroom, paying attention for the students to work, or trying to help them, motivate them, or answer different questions that they might have. In this encode, both instruments found that the teacher promotes strategies that allow students constant interaction, and in this interaction, the teacher helped them to complete their speech or paraphrase what they want to say to make it understandable for other students. So, by now moving to the next category, the role of the student in the class of communicative competence. It is defined theoretically as the role of the student in the types of activities. In this category, we found the first code, participation and positive attitude of the students, both in the interview and in the field diary. Here, the students say that the ideal role of the students is to be active, participatory, and autonomous. This reflection could also be verified with the field diary instruments, where the students demonstrated similar characteristics and also encouraged the choir classmates to do the same. Even on some occasions, strategies were visualized that prompted the students to generalize or draw conclusions to answer correctly. So, regarding the code, participation and negative attitude on the students, in the interviews, the students reported that the schedule they have of 4 hours for the class is insufficient. The students consider that a schedule of 6 hours experience in another course is enough to get the level C1.
In the following category, evaluation procedures and strategies in the communicative competence class, which according to the aforementioned authors refer directly to what type of method is used in the class. Here was found only one code, since in the field diary was an observatory evaluation. In the interview, it was evident that the students noticed a very particular type of evaluation used by the teacher, such as summative evaluations, which according to them are partials, quizzes, or rubrics that usually deal with grammar or vocabulary topics from the book. According to the perception of the students, this is considered a bit rigorous, and they think that it should be changed to a more formative type of evaluation, since they sometimes feel that they are going to fail because they feel fear or anxiety when they are presenting them. Finally, the last category, teaching tools in the communicative competence class, which is defined by Richards and Rogers as the means by which the teacher presents or practices the content and facilitates the communication in the class. 2 codes were found in this category. So it was found in both instruments, and according to this student's perception, that the use of the book is tired and monotonous. and their activities don't meet the interest and needs. On the other hand, the students prefer in comparison other types of activities, such as when the teacher is reflective and takes more innovative strategies or activities that don't have to use the workbook. According to the students' perceptions of this, these strategies are more beneficial for their learning.
This regulation proposal started with the three elements: the union of the data found in the field journal and the interview in comparison with the theory of language teaching, and also the background, of course. So from the category of the teaching role in the communicative competence class, we were able to interpret in the light of what was proposed by Richard and Rogers, also by Larson Freeman Anderson, and that the teacher behaves on certain occasions like a counselor, an immediate corrector, a practitioner thoughtful, and a facilitator. We were able to interpret from the roles evidence in the categories that the teacher performs strategies related to the methods that appear on the screen. The counseling role was evidenced, according to Richards and Rogers, when the teacher helps the students by increasing their vocabulary or paraphrasing them to extend what they say to other students. This role is directly related to the communicative language teaching. The immediate corrective role, according to Larson Freeman Anderson, is characterized by immediate correction as something that could be observed if both instruments, and is closely related to the CLL method. The next role was a reflective practitioner. According to Kumarada is a teacher who examines, frames, and tries to solve the dilemmas of practice in the classroom. Finally, the last role, the facilitator, according to Richards and Rogers, is defined as a teacher who walks to rooms seeking to interact with students, clarify concepts, and motivates them, among others. So, this category coincides with the findings of the on-screen investigation. Very similar perceptions were found. Students who wanted immediate or personalized correction, as in the research of Turak and McBride, or a reflective teacher who covered increasingly better strategies, as in Jimenez. So, next, the category role of the students in the class of communicative competence. We could interpret from the authors Kumarada and Harmer that the studies has different roles in the class. These are liberating, autonomous, socially autonomous, and academically autonomous, and problem solver. We were able to interpret from the roles evidence in the applied instruments that the student participates in strategies related to the methods that appear on the screen. According to Kumarada, the liberating autonomous role was found in the interview when the students criticized that administrative vision affected them. Also, the English schedule, and within their group, they expressed their displeasure and proposed different ways to address this problem. The socially autonomous role is identified in that attitude of students that has to help her classmates with the doubts they have or to participate during the class. The academic autonomous role was found in the interviews and confirmed with the field diary, where the students considered that a large part of their learning depends mainly on them. These roles mentioned, according to Kumarada are part of the POS method. And finally, according to Harmer, the last role was identified when students carried out strategies that sought a generalization from the student, because the teacher only gave them clues to give the correct answer. According to the same author, this last role is part of the silent way. Similar roles were found in the investigations that are observed on the screen. Students who are aware that their learning is mainly autonomous and they need others to improve, and also critical perception of what is proposed from the administration of the program.
Next, the category evaluation procedures and strategies in the communicative competence class. It's affirmed that the evaluation strategies in the class refer to the grammar translation method, since the interview offered us some perceptions of the students. They told us that the tools included partials, quizzes, rubrics, and they dealt with grammar or vocabulary issues of the book. This type of summative evaluation, according to Larson, Freeman, and Anderson, are typical of this method. However, it is not a very separate strategy. In the findings of the antecedent that we found in the upper part, it was found that teachers use this type of evaluations because it's necessary to measure the proficiency of the students and see how they have improved. Finally, in the teaching tools category, in the communicative competence class, was found a predominant element which is supported by the authors what appear on the right side on the screen. First, according to Masuhara and Tomlinson, the vast majority of English books are based on the communicative methods. Secondly, according to Kumarabadivelu, Harmer and Tomlinson, currently it's common for English classes to revolve around the workbook. However, this is not ideal since we shall guide the class and decide when it's convenient to use it and when not are the same students and teachers, and it shouldn't be a predominant element. Now, the findings that appear at the top admit that there are students that use the workbook autonomously, indicating that the book, isn't interesting to them, and or they use strategies that don't require it, and then is it necessary in our program so much predominance of the workbook? So, according to what was observed in the instruments, the antecedents, and the theoretical ones, it can be said that in the classes of communicative competence of the CEO, there's no defined method to develop the classes. This doesn't represent a problem, according to Kubra Valivelu, who has spoken about the post method. So, the strategies and the dynamics of the teachers that we observe in the class allow us to see that it's possible that teachers are developing a possibility of a post method. However, according to Williamson, following it without having principles has no value, and in this investigation, those principles couldn't be fully observed. These principles are based on what is proposed by Kumarali Velu. According to the author, there are 10 macro strategies that act as a general guide to teachers can guide their classes as they create their own teacher theory. Of these 10, 4 of them are related to the strategies that were carried out by teachers of the program.
So, from all this vision of the classic communicative competence, everything that we could be observed and all these strategies of the teachers, it is necessary to start questioning where are we going in terms of the method used in the communicative competence classes. About this, we have quoted Dr. Diana Gonzalez Moncara, who proposes that teachers should initiate a reflection on their own practices towards the construction of their own teaching method. And why create your own method? Well, the author has described that the teaching of foreign languages has been colonialized by foreign methods that have been proposed, for example, by the British Council, and she affirms that many of these methodologies do not correspond to the context of the classroom. In this sense, it is important to emphasize here that in the SEBA, it is that these discussions should be generated around which is precisely the method that is used now. If the program intends to work in the era of the post method, it is important that the teachers and the curriculum strategies of the program are directed towards macro strategies, and from there create their own method that allows the involvement of teachers, students, their context, and also their perceptions that showed that taking that into account is vital to understand the effectiveness of a teaching process.
Now, by a way of conclusion, we will then demonstrate the answers to the question and the research articles. First, the perception of the students were identified through the categorization that allowed generating 4 categories and the codes that were supported according to the information given by the students in the interview. Now, according to the second objective, which was to describe the perceptions, were found positive and negative perceptions regarding different aspects of the class, such as the book and some assessment tools, and more positive ones regarding to some roles of the teachers. Finally, the third objective, which was to compare perceptions, allowed us to assimilate that many of the classroom practices respond to various methods, including the post method, which lead us to reflect on the search of a pedagogy based on the post method and on the understanding of the reality of the students.
It is recommended also that both teachers and administrators have knowledge of the results of this research in order to reflect on the use of the post method in the classroom, or failing on the clarified or neglected teaching method and the need to manage training for the teachers. It is recommended also to reflect on the relevance and predominant role the workbook has for the communicative competence courses, or to check if the book allows addressing the communicative principles. It is suggested to consider the perceptions of the students in order to reflect on the curricular construction of the communicative competence courses, starting with the needs, interests, and learning styles of the students. It is also advisable to review the distribution of skills in language teaching and to seek teaching that integrates skills. According to what was mentioned by Richards and Rogers and Kimura-Vaivelu, it is recommended to use in the development of the subject, in an informal or formal way, an instrument for assessing the needs, progress, or interests of the students whose purpose is to reduce the perceptual gap between teacher and student.